Hello, welcome to the Hive with Us podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Martinez. Today we have a special guest I just met recently in the last couple of weeks, Joe Evangelisti. All right, so I have a question. This is based off the conversation we had in Louisiana.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you're always sourcing capital,
Mhm.
and not all capital is good capital, which we
Correct.
mentioned. But you said when we were in Louisiana, you said something interesting that it stuck with me. But money needs to bring more than just money to
Yeah.
your relationship. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that? Because I think it's such a great, it
Yeah.
was such a great lesson, and we're stuck with me even to today. And now that we're talking today, I want to share that with the world because we don't record that conversation.
Yeah, I've had this theory in my mind for a very long time, and I think a lot of real estate investors specifically, and I'm sure actually I shouldn't even say real estate investors, but let's focus on real estate investors for a minute, right? A lot of businesses need cash, and I think they tend to lean on different private lenders or any lender, for example, short of a commercial bank, right? Because any banking institution is not going to fall into this category, but let's say anything outside of a bank, for example, I'm always looking for the strategic effect of the money, right? So a lot of people can cut a check. And I think that when you're early on, especially, I was in an event about 2 months ago, and it was a very small event. There was only like 25 or 30 people in there. And this event had Damon John was one of the speakers.
Okay.
Super good guy. I don't know if you ever met him. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him a few times one-on-one or in small groups. And Damon said, I don't want to mess up the quote, but something to the effect of, the earlier you ask for money, the more expensive it's going to be. And that's, in every sense of the word, we all know that that's the case, right? The earlier you ask for it, the more expensive it's going to be. In my first deal that I ever did when I flipped a house, I was telling a story about this on one of my podcasts a couple weeks ago. My first deal, my private lender, and I'm telling you the story for a reason. I'll circle back to why, right?
Yeah.
My first lender, and I always say, if you want money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, ask for money. Okay, so I asked my first lender for money, gave me a bunch of advice. He tried to introduce me to a bunch of banks. And long story short, after about 4 months, he couldn't find me any money. And I had this smoking hot deal, and it was a short sale, and I ended up buying it. And I was like, dude, like, this is a great deal. Do you know anyone that can give me the money? And finally he caved, and he was like, okay, I'll give you the money, but it's going to be at ridiculous terms. I said, okay, what are the terms? He said, I want 15% interest and I want 20% of the profit. I said, fine, let's do the deal, right? And I forget exactly what I borrowed, but the bottom line is I flipped this house in under 90 days from start to finish. I bought it, I rehabbed it, put it back on the market, and we killed it. We knocked it out of the park. I made him so much money that we had lunch about 2 weeks after closing, and he brought a check to lunch for $5,000, and he handed me $5,000, and he was like, you paid me too much money. I feel bad. He gave me $5,000. And I was a broke kid, man. Like, I had just flipped my first house. Obviously I just made some profit, but I was still broke, right?
Yeah.
And I ripped the check up and I gave it back to him. And I was like, dude, a deal's a deal. This is what we agreed to. And this is what we said we were going to do. And I would tell you guys this, it wasn't because I had I'm some kind of honorable guy or something like that. It was just because a deal's a deal, right? And I believe when you do a deal, that's the way you should do a deal.
Yep.
And so from that point forward, first of all, I think he lent me 150 grand or something like that. I worked my way up to $8 million at one point with him. $8 million of his money on the street, okay, from 150 grand.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so the point is, I think at the beginning when you're doing deals with somebody, it doesn't matter what it costs you to do your first deal, your second deal, your fifth deal for that matter. You have to prove your worth, number one.
Ooh.
However, I also believe this is a guy that I knew going into it had a lot of experience lending money on the single family level. Like, he owned a title company. He knew a ton of flippers. He knew where to source deals. He knew how to find deals. He knew contractors. He knew where to get materials, right? So in other words, what I'm saying to you is he didn't just know how to write a check.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how to cover my ass if I got in trouble.
Yep.
He knew how to bail me out. Okay. And let me tell you, I got in trouble a lot. And when I had $8 million of his money on the street, I got in trouble a few times and he bailed me out. right? So a partner that writes you a check is not important if they can write you a check. Are they a good strategic partner? Can they help you make connections? Can they help you become a better whatever you do, flipper, developer? Can they create you to become better? But you have to get your ego out of it, right? Because if somebody's writing you a check, but you think you're so good, you don't need them, well, then it don't matter, right? Because your ego will be in the way the whole time. You're just like, give me a check. I just need your money. I care more about today, maybe because I'm older and wiser and, I've just been doing this longer. I care more about the strategic relationship than I care about the check, right? Lots of people can write you a check. And by the way, you might find if you've just started doing this, or maybe you've been doing it for a while, there's lots of people that can write you a check and they're complete D-bags.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, maybe you guys have borrowed money, maybe you haven't, or maybe somebody listening has borrowed money. There's a lot of people that write checks and they're a complete pain in the ass, right? They bug you. It's the opposite of a strategic partner, right? They drive you crazy. I just give them their check back. I don't want their money, right? If you're gonna give me money and then drive me crazy, I don't want that money, right? I'm starting to look for more alignment, right? Money is one thing. How can we create strategic relationships and grow together? And how can I help you help me, and vice versa, right? Because writing a check is just one part of the equation. But if we can't grow together, then there's really no sense in me taking your money if I can't help you and you can't help me. So I think the strategic piece of it is just as important as the money.
And that right there, I don't even want to add to that. That is amazing. I'm going to cut that whole part into a clip because I think more people need to hear that, because it's such and a lot of people don't understand this. Like, pay whatever it costs in your first deal, your first 5 deals, pay whatever it costs. It doesn't matter. And I love that you've got it up to 8 million. I love you to tell the story because I tell people this all the time. Like, I told a new partner, they're like, "Oh, I know you guys got private capital. What's it going to cost to do the deal?" I'm like, 50%.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too expensive. I can't do it. All right. Deuces.
People burn bridges like that. It's so aggravating. It's like, dude, you have no, especially if they have no experience, right? It's like you have no experience and you're trying to write the rules. It's like, dude, you got somebody who's got 10, 20 years of experience and they're trying to tell you this is what I need. And you're shitting all over the deal before it's even gotten started. It's like that person could help you do your next 100 deals.
Yep.
You're shitting on them for the first deal.
Yep.
It's like that dude, that guy, by the way, could have told me he wanted 50% of the flip and I would have given it to him.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
It doesn't matter because the biggest thing is you knew he had experience and you're willing to pay him for the time, and you understood that. So you're willing to pay him through the transaction. Yes, you're still going to get paid. It's less than what you want or would like, but you're paying him for his experience. And then that opened up the door to where you're at now, 10 years later, and you had $8 million in the street at that point. But it was more, and it's such a great story. I love that. When you're starting out, overpay capital, find a strategic partner that's going to bring more that's so. I love that, man. This is the best part of the whole episode, in my opinion. That was amazing.